Top 50!
Top 50!
Top 50! Top 50! Hi everybody, and welcome back to our Top 50 favorite board games. We are now right in the middle. We've got number 30 to 21. So again, we're going to jump right into it. So Lewis, get us started. What is your number 30?
Thanks, Kimberly. My number 30 is a two-player game that Kimberly and I played when we very first got to know each other. And in some ways, I like to think this is the game that we kind of bonded over. Like, this was the make or break it game. It's called Lost Cities. And you knew that's what it was, huh?
Yeah.
And in this game, you are playing opposite each other, trying to send out expeditions and fill out an expedition and get as many points as possible. You have cards in your hand. On your turn, you play a card and then you draw a card. And that can be pretty tricky sometimes because you might be looking at the cards you have and realize you don't want to play any of them. And you always want to draw one so you can get a card you can use. Well, you can also play a card in the center where it's basically like discarded. But the thing is, they can pick up that card you just discarded. And oftentimes, when you put a card down, you know it's one they want. Mm-hmm. So that can be really tricky. But anyway, I love Lost Cities, and we've had a lot of fun with it.
It was really fun to get to know all these new kinds of games, and you did introduce me to games like Lost Cities and Memoir 44 and Battle Line. Those were some of our early games that we played two players. San Juan. Yeah. And so for me, they have near and dear places in my heart. But yeah, Lost Cities is great because you don't want to start too many expeditions because you get negative points if you spread out. You really want to maximize a couple of those lines.
What's your number 30?
My number 30 is a cooperative game, and I will tack on the legacy version to this. It's Annos End. And so for me, that was a really great legacy game to play. But anytime I play Annos End, I feel like we are on the same team, fighting as hard as we can against our opponent, whatever this, creature, this, evil entity is. And the way you play on your turn is you're drawing your cards, so you have this deck building, but the way the deck works is you draw your cards and then you discard them and you're able to then buy more or activate put spells up into the space where you get to shoot them off at the beginning of your turn. And then once your deck is gone, you just take your deck and then you just turn it over and you place it on the other side. And so I think the deck building part of it's really clever and unique and something you don't usually see with deck builders, but I love the cooperative adventure feel of it.
I think there's probably one problem with deck builders, and that's the shuffling. I'm not a fan of shuffling because I think some people don't shuffle well. And I think that Annos End fixes it by just saying, no, there's no shuffle. You just take your deck and flip it over. So the way you put your cards in the discard pile, that's how you're going to get them back in the other direction. And I love that.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Pretty cool.
All right. My number 29 is one you've said earlier, Battle Line, Shot and Totten. This is a great game, great two-player game. It gets rid of something I don't like in two-player games, which is tug of war. I'm not a fan of tug of war where I gain a few points, then you gain a few, and we just kind of move back and forth.
Yeah.
In Shot and Totten, it is a tug of war, but you don't have that feel like, oh no, I just lost everything I gained last turn. Instead, you're like, okay, I just lost this spot, but I'm winning at this spot and this spot, so I feel okay about it.
Yeah.
I really like how Shot and Totten
And when you're playing with an opponent who is an equal, you're always kind of just you're like, oh, they've got they've got it. And so, yeah, I might have a better row here, but you have one that's right next to me that's really good, and you're going to break up my potential 1, 2, 3 in a row.
Right.
And so it's really, really good game. And where you play your cards out, you don't know because you haven't seen the entire deck. You don't know what cards are coming, and so you're doing your best every time you take your turn. But there's a little bit of who knows.
I always have a good time with Battle Line.
Battle Line's super. I agree too. So my 29 is one that Lewis mentioned already. So, and I think we'll get to that later. A Feast for Odin. I think that's a really great giant game. You pull it out, it's this big box. And
it's so big. It's
so much and so many baggies.
Full to the top.
To the rafters.
Yeah, like the box doesn't,
Yeah.
because we have the expansion, and the box
Yeah.
isn't quite shut
Yeah.
anymore. It's just too full.
It's just wonderful the choices you get. So not only do you have all these actions down the side of the board, each of those actions has a degree to which you can do that action by playing 1 worker or 2 workers or 3 workers. And so you have a limited number of workers and you're trying to figure out how can I get the best for what I have, but someone might go in a place that blocks you and then you have to change your turn up a little bit, and so you're always reacting to other people when you're playing onto the board, but then you have your own player area and you're really putting down all those Tetris pieces trying to cover up all the good stuff and like get all the things.
Right.
So yeah, it's a great 2-parter system that I really enjoy.
Feast for Odin is fantastic. Now my number 28 is a game that I personally love. I don't know that Kim's ever played it, and if she has, she would have hated it. It's called Blood Bowl. It's an old Games Workshop game where you and an opponent are playing a sort of soccer, football, rugby match, and your little units are just fighting against each other and you're trying to score. You can beat each other up. There's a lot of kind of ridiculous rules. If at any point on your turn you mess up, if you have a single failure, your turn's over. It's not balanced well. It's just, there's so many reasons not to like this game, but for some reason I love it. I have so much fun with it.
Yeah.
And my way of dealing with the fact that I don't even feel like I can share it with anyone else, because all that will happen is if you have a lot of experience, you'll beat them. And so what I do is I play on the computer, because playing against a real person is just asking them to spend 2 hours of misery with me. But boy, I have fun when I'm playing by myself.
I do hear a lot about Blood Bowl, and I know things about it, but I have not played it, so no. And I know that it would probably be a rough learning how to play, because catching up with someone is hard when they just keep on playing it too. So
yeah, it's an old style game that just doesn't really care if you're, it's more than happy to ruin your day. Yeah.
My pick for 28 is Nusfjord. Nusfjord. So this is a fish game. What is it, Norwegian maybe?
Probably.
Something like that. Our friend Andy taught it to us at Gen Con? BGG.
Board Game Geek.
And we could not stop saying Nusfjord, and that was...
Boy, he didn't
like that very much.
He didn't think it was as funny as we thought it was.
But I think it's a really cool game. I like what you have to do on your turn. I like the requirements, and I like the restrictions with getting people and the fish, and you have to select... What do you have to do in Nusfjord? What do you remember?
Not a lot. You put down your guys, you recruit guys, and then you get a bunch of fish. I love Nusfjord. It's great.
I do too, and I'm not sure I know what you do in Nusfjord now that I think about it, other than fish. And I remember the fish being depleted, and I remember I can't have a certain number of like old people.
Mm-hmm. Something.
It's good. It's a good game.
It's fun.
Yeah.
My number 27 is a new one, Dune Imperium.
What?
Yeah, now Kim mentioned it earlier.
Oh my gosh.
I think Dune Imperium, I mentioned Gold West last video as being what I consider just a very well crafted game. I think Dune Imperium is also almost perfectly crafted. It does, mechanism wise, it does about 4 things, and it does them all very cleanly and very perfectly. You might argue that the theme isn't super connected to like the Dune universe. I'm fine with that. I'm happy that someone like Kimberly, who isn't a big Dune fan, can have a great time playing it. And then someone that is a Dune fan, I can go, oh look, a Bene Gesserit witch, cool, and I have fun with that. And it doesn't matter. I mean, I think Dune's great.
Yeah.
Dune Imperium, great new design, and something to really look into.
So excited that made your list. Yeah. I felt like putting it in my top 50, having been a recent game, was kind of risky, but I liked it so much that I thought I can't not include it. I think it's just a great game. And I didn't know that it was going to show up later in yours.
Yep.
Yeah, good to hear. My 27 is a game called Attica. Attica is a really cool game of placing tiles out onto the board, but you don't know when you're going to get your buildings. Now, you have stacks of your buildings and you draw them, but you're hoping to get chains of buildings and you're hoping to branch out from your area. And one of the goals is to go from your home base to your opponent's home base, or one of your opponents if you're playing with more than 2 players. And along the way you have to build and buy those things, and it's really costly, cost prohibitive to do certain things. But I think it's just a great game. It's just a good game. I don't know what else to say about it other than I like it.
It's not on my list, but it is an excellent game. It's been a while since we've played.
It has.
And maybe if we played it, again, I'd be like, oh, wow, how did I not include this on my list? Yeah.
I think there are a handful of games that do that for me. And it's tough because if I had a top 100, I probably could include more of those games that I know are just solid, that I enjoy, but that we haven't played recently.
This is always part of the problem with gaming, is that as new games come out, you're just overwhelmed by all the new choices, and it can be sometimes difficult to get back to some great games like Attica.
Yeah. So you'd have 26.
26, I picked the Great Western Trail. Great Western Trail is a pretty heavy game, but it is such a good design.
Yeah.
Alexander Pfister put together something that I think is just really cool and smart and fun. You have to use your brain a lot. But boy, it's and when you show up at Kansas City with the right group of cows and you're like, look at this, I'm building clear out here because I'm getting so much money.
Yeah.
You feel pretty good about yourself. But boy, I have a lot of fun with Great Western Trail. Good cowboy game.
It's a cowboy game, but it's also like you get from here, the bottom of the board, and you can take all these different routes to get all the way to the top. You can spend as much time or as little time as you want. Obviously, you can't go more than your 3 spaces. And you have to watch out for hazards. But you build... The game gets a little bit tougher because you're building buildings that slow people down in these used to be open routes in the Great West, right on your trail to get to Kansas City. It's good. I totally agree. Yeah.
So good.
And what's so funny about your pick with Great Western Trail at number 26 is I have another Alexander Pfister game in this position, but not the Great Western Trail.
Oh, interesting.
I have Maracaibo.
Great.
So Maracaibo is a game on this list. Might be one of the only ones that I've played the fewest amount of. But when I played this, it absolutely blew me away.
Yeah.
I really, really enjoy the gameplay. I think when there's a game that has so much going on, sometimes I get a little bit AP. Way more so than Lewis. He doesn't mind making a turn and just accepting it and moving on. I take a little bit more time. I have to think about things, and I'm going like 3 or 4 steps ahead, and I'm thinking about, well, what will you do? And if I do this, then I got to do that, and I got to do... That game does that for me. So I'm boating around at the same time. I've got the trail down, exploring, and I've got my cards out here. I want to play that card, and I want to work on my boat and do my upgrades, and then I got to go fight and do some combat and like get some of those, glory points down. Oh, I think Maracaibo is just one of those jump in and just stay in there for a couple hours. If you're playing with me, it's going to be a couple hours.
I really like this game, Maracaibo. It's not on my list, and it's probably because I haven't played it enough yet. It might be better than Great Western Trail, but I don't feel like I have the experience with it yet, where I know Great Western Trail always gets me.
We've played that a lot more.
But the design on it is fantastic. But you're right, it can lead to analysis paralysis and cause you to end up playing for 3 hours instead of 2.
Yeah.
All right. My number 25 is a little cooperative game that came out recently and just did, I think, a great job of making a co-op themed game something that new people can get into. It's called Horrified.
Oh!
Did you know? Is that what you were looking for? It's over here somewhere.
Horrified is behind us, I think.
So, yeah, it's right back there.
Yeah.
Now, Horrified is a game where you are working together to try and stop a few monsters, and each monster has a different system to stop them. So like with Dracula, you have to break up his coffins and then defeat him. With the Frankensteins, you have to get them to be nice and then meet each other and fall in love. And I just like the way you work together, the way the monsters that look silly at first, like a Dracula from the old Universal, but boy, you start to get scared of them when they come after and start whacking you around. So
yeah.
Really cool game. I love Horrified, and it's great to introduce to new people who have not played a co-op game before.
It is a great game for that. And it's also just fun. It's just fun, and you play all the different monsters. You can make it easier or harder based on how many monsters you add or the combinations of the creatures. Really fun. I totally agree.
Love it.
Horrified is a super pick.
All right, what's your 25?
My 25 is like another super heavy, crazy strategic game. So coming off of Maracaibo, I would the Crystal Palace.
Crystal Palace.
Just Crystal Palace. For me, this is all about the player interaction, though. So you've got the whole, what am I doing on my turn? And how much money do I have to pay for the pips on my dice that are going to be my workers that go out to the locations in the center of the board? There's all these little boards that fit together to make a central area.
Sure.
But it's the choices of when you place something and where you place it, and if that's going to get you priority for that particular action against the other players. I like it, and I love the theme. I think the theme works super well. You're at the World Fair, inventors and creations, and you're advertising for your country, and there's just so much in that. It's just overwhelming. It can be overwhelming.
And a really cool mechanism, because money is super tight, and so when you're setting your workers, their dice, and you can pick how many pips you want, but you have to pay for each one. And you're like, money's tight, but I really need this guy to have a lot of pips. It's a cool mechanism. I like that a lot.
You don't roll dice. Dice are in the game, but you pick them.
My number 24 is Century Spice Road. And I debated earlier adding Splendor to my list, because I like Splendor for various reasons, because I feel like Century Spice Road is kind of the same game, but better.
Interesting.
And, yeah, but I did include Splendor because I guess I just like this idea
I think you do.
I think I just like the idea of, if I buy this, it gives me this thing, and now I can more efficiently buy the next thing.
Yeah.
So, Splendor and Century Dice Road are both... Spice. Century Spice Road are both very similar mechanisms, and I prefer this one. Now, there are various versions of it, and I think they're all great. The easiest one is just to pick up, your basic Century Spice, but you can mix and match and play.
I like Century Spice Road because you can take a card from the center, and every time you go back in the row, it costs cubes of any color, of any type, but obviously there are less valuable cubes of color than the really nice valuable cubes of color. But it doesn't matter. You put a cube out and you take a card that's later in the row and you just add it, and now that's a card in your hand that you get to play. And once you've played cards out, you can just say on your turn, I want to take all my cards back, and those are all your actions. Mm-hmm. I think that's just a really neat thing that Splendor doesn't have.
Right.
That makes that a really unique game.
Yeah, I think it takes Splendor's kind of simplicity up one notch, but it doesn't get in the way.
Yeah.
It actually, for me, makes it a better game.
Yeah, it's a nice game.
All right.
So my 24 is a game that you just mentioned 2 ago. Great Western Trail. Yeah.
Hey, there
so I really, really enjoy it as well. It's just fun. You enjoy it, and I think every time I play, I try something new or something that I hadn't done before. But I think it's just a really great thematic, fun game.
Fantastic game.
I like it.
All right, number 23. So earlier I mentioned that Time's Up is my favorite party game. And some people might argue that this is my favorite party game, or is a party game. I'm not sure it's a party game in the same way. Time's Up, you sit around in a group and you're screaming and yelling. This is called Just One. I know, you're doing your one finger. Just One is up to 7 players, and it's one of the few games where I feel like having 7 people around the table doesn't slow it down at all.
It makes it better.
It makes it better.
Yeah.
We've played Just One in all sorts of areas. It's so easy to learn. You can play it with heavy gamers, people that love games, or with people that just don't ever play games, and everyone has a good time.
Yeah.
Easy to learn. I think Just One should be in everybody's closet. Like, if you want a game closet, you want 5 games in your closet, Just One should be one of those games.
Which is why it is number 23.
Right. I'm not saying that
I'm kidding.
I have other games that I prefer better, but boy, I think Just One is
Just One is
so good.
It's super. You write down words to get someone to guess the word that's on a card that they can't see, but if someone else shares that word with you, you wrote down stove and they wrote down stove, you have to turn it face down, and then the guesser doesn't get all that information because you had the same word as someone else. So just seeing people's associative, like those connections they make with words and culture, super fun.
Always have
and you play until you're tired. Who cares? There's no points.
No one cares about points or winning. You just have a good time until you're done having a good time.
Yeah, it's a great game.
All right.
So my number 23 is a cooperative game. It is called Marvel Champions. Marvel Champions is really good. And it's the kind of cooperative game that is hard. Like, I like a challenge, and I want to feel like I am not going to win the game. And so when we do win the game, it's super, super fun. And I love the heroes. When you're playing one of the superheroes, you feel like you're that superhero. Their decks are so unique and so fun. I can't wait to try all of them out. We had a Marvel Champions kick for a while, and we haven't played since then, and all I want to do is jump back into Marvel Champions, but that's mostly because you keep buying new decks.
I do. Marvel Champions is really fun.
It's great.
And you're right about each deck having its own feel. So if you're playing Iron Man, it feels different than if you're playing Black Panther, or if you're playing Captain America, or Spider-Man. And
Thor. I mean, all of them.
Because of that, I keep buying all the new heroes they keep releasing, and
I sit there and I read all the cards as we unpack them, and I'm like, ooh.
But we haven't gotten it out. We need to get it out more often. No, Marvel Champions is fantastic.
What about your 22?
My number 22 is a card game called Oh My Goods.
Oh My Goods.
Yeah. This is a little card game that I have so much fun with, and I'm pretty sure you don't like it as much as me.
I'm very sure I don't like it as much as you. I like the game. I don't love the game.
Right.
I can't figure the game out, and I don't know why.
Yeah, but I think that happens sometimes with games where you just can't quite get your head around what's happening, the mechanism, and make it click for you, so then you can make the best moves all the time. Oh My Goods is a game where you are building little engines, I guess, and trying to generate the best goods so that you can get the most points.
There's a little bit of press your luck in it, and that's probably where I fall down, because I try to hedge my bets, or I try to play it safe, or every time I do one move, it's never the move I should have made at that point, because there's at the end of the round, when you set all your things up and you're ready to go, you flip over cards, and then based on the symbols, like the sun symbols, you keep flipping cards, and some rounds you can have 5 bonus cards add to your stoves or whatever, and then sometimes it's 2 and they're not even close to what you need, and you're like, well, I guess I failed, and then you're like, guess my failed round, I got $1, and then what do you do? Sorry, I'm poo-pooing your list, I'm so sorry.
But it's true, that is the game, and this is why Kim has more frustration with it than I do, because I tend to get lucky more often than that. I really like it. I have a lot of fun with it. And when we go on trips, I'm always like, let's bring this along.
Because it's so small and compact.
It's just a little card game.
It's good.
It's good. And then Kim puts up with me and plays with it. So
no, I keep trying because I want to get it. I want to feel it. I want to get it.
All right.
So my number 22 is a game that we can't play just the two of us, and that means we don't play it that often, and when we do find people who want to play it with us, they may not be ready for our level of bargaining and strategy. The game I like is Chinatown. Chinatown is a wonderful game for interplay, player-to-player action, where you say, hey, I'll give you these, these jeans and $1 or $1,000, whatever it is, and then you give me property 77. And there's just this bargaining, open, just yelling bargaining sessions, and I love it. It's a great game, but you have to play it with the full number. You can't play it with fewer. I don't think it's as effective because you don't have as many people to bargain with. But we don't play that many games, and I don't necessarily like bargaining games, but I think that's the perfect bargaining game. I love the placement where you're building the buildings with the kinds of properties, and you're getting victory points at the end of every scoring phase, and you're drawing new property. Oh, I love it so much.
Yeah,
I think it's so good.
If you're playing with the right group, it's probably the best bargaining game out there.
Yeah.
If you have somebody who's a wallflower and just kind of wants to sit back and doesn't want to be pushy and will just say sure because they want to be nice, it's not the right game for them. But if you've got a bunch of hucksters who are trying to bargain each other out, boy, Chinatown's great. Yeah, we'll scream at each other.
We'll call each other and be like, "Don't do a deal with the Lewis. He's swindling you. Well, this is such a bad choice for you."
Yeah, we have a lot of fun with that. All right, last one for this list, number 21 for me. This is a game that was designed by one of the most lovely, nice human beings I've ever met on this planet. His name is Eric Royce, and he made a game called Spirit Island. And Eric's game is so smart. It's a cooperative game where you are working as the native inhabitants of an area, and colonizers are coming in and trying to take your land, and you work with your spirits that kind of guard this land, and you work together to drive those invaders off. And thematically it's a beautiful game, but boy, the mechanisms are so smart. And we had the opportunity of working with Eric when he was designing the game. He let us do a play test early on, and I'll tell you what, the reason this game is so sharp and so strong and so well put together, that guy worked at it.
Yeah.
He must have play tested this game 1,000 times. He probably would tell you exactly how many. He'd say it's 8,322. However, but he worked to make this game perfect, and it is a great cooperative game. It's hard. You're going to burn your brain. And I don't know that I win as soon as I get out of the easier level spirits. Like when you start getting into the more complex, I start to my brain doesn't handle it right. But boy, it's a good game, and I really love Spirit Island.
And it's a great game for players making choices that help the team, but they have their own set of actions and cards that they can take, and the bonus abilities that they have to contribute to the team, so everyone feels like they're making their own decisions as well. And I think sometimes in cooperative games there might be that kind of loud controlling player voice, not intentionally, but they might then kind of dictate what everyone does as a collective action. But in this game, you really do have to make your own choice, and you're looking at your cards and your actions, and so it really makes the game strong.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, if Eric Royce's name is on a game, you're going to get a good game. What's your number 21?
My number 21 is a game that Lewis mentioned before, and I'm going to say that for me it does matter that it's the Legacy version. I think Clank Legacy was, to me, a fantastic version. And I'm not saying that I won't jump into Clank, but I did jump into just a regular Clank after we played Clank Legacy, and I was slightly disappointed because it didn't have the same dynamic gravitas that the Legacy version did. There was so much fun humor in the stories and the adventures. The boards you flipped from side to side, and you added all these different stickers and locations. Your deck you built up with all these really cool special unique things that only you had access to, or that you drafted at the beginning of each round when you played, that might change from game to game, but that you would also just keep in your deck, and you knew that you had a chance of playing that from game to game. And I don't know, I just feel like my identity in the Clank Legacy was so cool and unique, and I just couldn't wait to play every time we played. I mean, it probably was the most anxious I've ever been when we played Clank Legacy from Sunday to Sunday. But it was like just so exciting and emotional. So for me, it just totally gets above half of my list. I mean, at 21, that's at the top half of my top 50. And so I just really enjoyed it. I think it's a great Clank version, the Clank Legacy.
Clank Legacy's good.
Yeah. Okay, well, that is going to end our middle section from 30 to 21. Next time, you're going to get 20 to 11.
Ooh.
Yeah, get excited. We'll see you next time.